Does it pay to reinvent yourself? Can drones be the answer? Well, stick around, I'll let you know. We've all heard the term, someone has reinvented themselves, but what does that really mean? Well, it can be as simple as changing jobs within your own industry, maybe going out to a brand new industry, or what about becoming an entrepreneur? Life as we know was upended last year during the pandemic and still continues to have effects on us. Maybe now is the time we should consider reinventing ourselves. But what does that really mean? I've done this several times in my life, which I'll talk about in a minute. But first, how do you know you need to change? Well, the first thing you have to do is some self-analysis. Where am I in my professional and personal life? Where do I want to be? What's right? What's wrong? And do some basic analysis. Let's look at some of the key possibilities. You've stopped growing, either professionally or personally. Things that were fun to you may seem tedious now. Your goals in life have changed. Maybe you feel trapped into doing what you need to do versus what you want to do. Your current life is leading to exhaustion and burnout. That can be a real problem for you both professionally, personally, and health-wise, and these changes need to be made. Maybe life has given you an opportunity for change, whether it be downsizing, early retirement, things like that. Maybe you've just had a nagging desire to do something different, and there was just never the right time to do it. And finally, maybe your just intuition told you now is the time to do something different. Let's make a change in our life. But change is scary. It's something we have to consider for a long time. Look inward, decide what makes sense for you. And if you can't make a definite decision, maybe give it some time. Let it percolate in your brain for a while, overnight, over a weekend, over a month, over 6 months. There's no rush, but you need to consider carefully what you're going to do. Let me give you some examples from my life. As a college graduate, I went directly from college to Southern Bell. But that wasn't by choice, really. That was never my goal to go to Southern Bell. They had actually started recruiting me early in my college career. They would send me periodic letters and say, hey, you're doing great. Come talk to us when you're near graduation, which I did. They hired me, and I thought, this is a great job. I'm now an outside plant engineer with Southern Bell. But this wasn't something I decided to do. It kind of came to me. And things were great. I enjoyed the job. But after about 9 years, I sat back and looked at myself and looked around me and said, do I want to be doing this 30 years later? Because I could look at my peers that had been there for 30 years, and they were very cynical. They were tired of this work. They did the same thing over and over again. So I said, okay, where do I need to be? When you looked at Southern Bell's culture at that time, they said, if you are a head and shoulders better than the person next to you, you will get promoted. Okay, I'd already been through the assessment center, and Southern Bell said I was promotable, so that was good. So I picked a person. I said, okay, I know without a shadow of a doubt, I'm head and shoulders better than that person. And if they get promoted before I do, I'm out of here. Well, sure enough, one Monday morning, big get-together, the announcement was made that that person got promoted. And I said, okay, I made the decision. I'm going to pull the trigger. And I already had contacts on the outside of Southern Bell and people that actually wanted me, and I kept putting them off. So that day I made the phone call and I said, hey, Eddie, I'm ready to go. And I was hired by this company. Now, this was a major reinvention for a couple of reasons. Number one, I left the security of Southern Bell and went to what I consider a third world contract engineering company, because that wasn't really popular in those days. And not only did I do that, but I moved to Fort Lauderdale. I'd spent my entire life in Atlanta. And instead of being managed by someone, I was now managing 20 brand new contract engineers. So quite a culture shock. Now I settled in okay, but my first challenge was I had to fire somebody. Oh, and that was tough. Figuring out how to do that as a brand new manager, but I did it. My client was happy and things went well. And I moved up within that company and life was good. Then a couple years down the road, the VP of that department started his own company and brought on myself and another fellow as partners. Okay, another big change. Now not only was I managing, but I was a partner in this company, and that brought all sorts of challenges with that too. like putting your house on the line for your loan and things like that. But that was also good. And we grew and grew and grew, and life was good again. But as sometimes happens to partnerships, things soured over the years, and it came a point in time when it was time for me to leave. And I sold my ownership out to the other two and moved on. So now came my second reinvention, and probably I would consider my first actual business that I owned by myself. I was looking around and I said, okay, I'll start a consulting business. Well, that's code for I don't know what I'm going to do. But as I was doing that, my wife's uncle had been involved in accident reconstruction. He was a retired motor officer with Miami-Dade Police Department, and he was doing extremely well. And I thought, well, I've got this huge background in motorcycling. I think I'll try that. And I did a few cases. But the thing that bothered me there, it was like an ambulance chaser. These were personal injury cases, and I just didn't enjoy doing it. But I said, okay, I've got a telecom background. Why don't I use that in my expert witness business? And that turned out to be really good and continues so to this day. The thing I enjoyed most about this was it was like being a detective. Client would call me in and I would have to figure what happened, who caused it, how much did it cost to fix it. And I really enjoyed that kind of work. Even the deposition part with the attorneys. I understood the game. I didn't take it personally. I used to joke and say sometimes an attorney would ask me, were your mother and father married when you were born? So, gloves were off there. Anything was fair game when they asked you questions. So this was a good move for me too, but I was still itching for something else. And being a lifelong motorcyclist, I'd always had the desire to become a motorcycle safety foundation instructor. Not for a business, just because I wanted to do that and kind of give back to the motorcycling community. So I took the training, which was a 10-day, very intensive course in the summer in South Florida. Brutal, but I enjoyed doing it. First thing I did was hire on with a local school. And quite quickly, I realized these people had no idea what they were doing. I'm pretty anal when it comes to doing things by the book, and they were all over the place. Some of it even had liability issues, I thought. So I came home and I talked to my wife. I said, one of two things has to happen. Either I need to do this better or I need to quit. So we made the decision to start our own company. Third reinvention. Now that's way out of the bounds of anything I'd ever did before starting a motorcycle training company. But we formed the company, went out and bought a truck, trailer, 13 motorcycles, and started business. And it grew fast and it worked well. At our peak, we had 5 locations in Central Florida, a staff of instructors. We trained 800 students a year. And again, life was good. And this was probably the best business in my life. I had such a good time doing it. Hard work, but very gratifying. In fact, I have to tell you that after we had sold the company, I was teaching my last class. And during a break, this woman came up to me, a previous student from a few months back, and she said, "You changed my life. I had been such a shy and bashful person, but you brought me out of my shell, and I really enjoyed that, and I thank you so much for it." And that was such a gratifying feeling. Ultimately, we sold the company for a profit and moved to California, ironically to a student who was moving from California to Tampa. So I spent a couple years in Tampa and was eventually called back to Florida and spent a short stint as a CEO in charge of a large international telecom association. Did that for a while, back to expert witness work. That itch started again. What solved it this time? Well, this time the itch was scratched by the drone industry, and that brings us to today. So as a college graduate, this is not at all what I expected out of my life. I had looked at my dad growing up. He spent 30 years with Lockheed in the aviation industry. Spent his time there, retired. He and mother traveled afterwards. And that's what I expected. It doesn't work that way these days. Multiple jobs, multiple careers. Would I change anything? Absolutely not. All these moves and changes I've made have allowed me to make a living doing things that I really enjoy. And I wouldn't change a thing about it. So all I can say is take some time, evaluate your own life. What's your position in life, professionally and personally? Are there changes you need to make? What could those changes be? What can I do to be happier in life? And see where that takes you. And maybe decide to reinvent yourself. I hope you're still enjoying these videos. I really enjoy doing them. And if you still are, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe down below. And if you feel like sharing it with your friends, please do so. That would be greatly appreciated. And if you want me to feature one of your drone videos in a future episode, please send it on, and I'd be happy to include it. And as always, thank you for watching.